Beloved, there is a weariness in the air, an ache behind the eyes of a world that has been told that if only it thinks hard enough, words hard enough, claims long enough, it can force the universe to bend to its will. You know it, I know it. There is a cultural fatigue with manifesting vision boards layered upon vision boards, affirmations piled like bricks to build a tower to heaven, the anxious counting of days and dollars and likes and outcomes, and yet the more we try to make it happen, the more the soul whispers for rest. We have tried to be the sun and burned ourselves on our own little fires. So hear me, not as a rebuke, but as freedom. Stop manifesting, start receiving. A most positive no to mind-made magic and a most positive yes to the grace that already is. This is the reversal, the gentle turning of the thought stream back to its source. The human mind is not the creator. It is an instrument of awareness. It is like the lens that receives the light. It does not produce the light. It is like the harp that vibrates with the musician's touch. It does not write the music. The mind that frets and plans and pushes is not the power. It is the transparency through which the power may shine. I and the Father are one, not two powers, not a weary human conjuring and a reluctant God withholding, but one life infinitely expressing, one mind infinitely knowing, one love infinitely unfolding. When we accept this as more than piety, as the way things are, we lay down the hammer and the blueprint and the white-knuckle prayer list, and we say with relief, thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, thine, not mine. I am not asking you to abandon desire because desire is wrong. I am asking you to discover that the deepest desires of the heart are not personal cravings, but divine impulses seeking expression, immaculate ideas knocking upon the door of your attention. Be still and know that I am God, Psalm 46:10. Not be frantic, not be persuasive. Be still. The promise is not that mental force creates. The promise is that quiet receptivity realizes. In the stillness, guidance is not invented, it is recognized. Supply is not manufactured, it is revealed. Creativity is not assembled like a machine. It blossoms like a garden when spring happens to it. Stop manifesting, start receiving. Now, I can almost hear the trained protest rising. If the mind doesn't create, how then do supply, guidance, and creativity appear? Where do the very forms of our lives come from? And the answer, dear friends, is as old as the whisper of spirit. They appear as the natural, unlabored outflow of divine ideas received. Before Abraham was, I am, John 8:58. Before your thought, before your practice, before your wish, there is an I, that is, an I that knows, an I that loves. God works in the infinite nowness, not in the calendar of our urgency. When you consent to be the instrument, the music plays. When you consent to be the window, the light enters. When you consent to be the branch, the sap of life moves and fruit appears in season, not because you strained, but because you yielded. Stop manifesting. Start receiving. We have been trained to believe that our outcomes are our responsibility to make, to wrestle them from a reluctant universe, to bargain with an absent deity, to shout our wishes louder than the noise of the world. But listen to the Master's serenity. Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They toil not, neither do they spin. Matthew 6. That is not passivity. That is assurance. That is not apathy. That is alignment. Toil and spin belong to fear. Growth and flowering belong to life. When we take on the universe's work, we collapse under a weight we were never asked to lift. I am not making the stars come out, nor the moon to rise, nor the sun to set. I'm perfectly content to let God run the universe. Let God run the universe includes letting God conduct the small symphony of your day. the email answered at the right hour, the acquaintance remembered, the check arriving in the very way you could not have staged. Thine is the rhythm, thine is the substance, thine is the timing. And so I come speaking not condemnation, but a deliverance from the tiredness of thought. The mind as creator breeds anxiety. The mind as instrument discovers rest. The will as engine breeds struggle. The will as consent discovers grace. Prayer as projection breeds disappointment. Prayer as reception discovers the inner word moving before we ask. Answered prayer is the felt impulse of God within quiet, sure, unmistakable as peace. We do not persuade God, we awaken to God. We do not inform the infinite of our needs. We learn to live where there is no need, only unfoldment. In that place you find the strange arithmetic of heaven, a little trust, a little silence, and suddenly the impossible loses its teeth. Stop manifesting, start receiving. You may say, but I have bills, deadlines, children, a diagnosis, and I will not argue your calendar or your papers or your pain. I will say this: harmony does not come because we make it. Harmony is revealed because it already is the nature of God's universe. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want, Psalm 23. Not I shall get everything my mind demands, but I shall not want, because the shepherd's presence is provision. And in that presence, the next step is clear. The phone call is natural. The idea is present. The courage is given. What we call supply is but the visible echo of an invisible idea accepted. What we call guidance is but the effortless rightness of an inner yes. What we call creativity is but the river finding its bed when the stones of resistance are lifted out. Stop manifesting. Start receiving. Let this be our beginning, to lay down the little god of mental magic and to bow not to a distant despot, but to the living presence that is our very life. I and the Father are one. Therefore, I need not invent my life. God works in the infinite nowness. Therefore, I need not postpone my peace. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Therefore, I do not grasp, I do not cling, I do not command, I consent. In that consent is the secret you came to hear, the secret your heart already knows. When you stop making outcomes, you make room for the divine idea to appear as outcome. And what appears bears the fragrance of effortlessness. So here is our mantra as we step onto this holy ground together, not as another technique to master, but as a surrender to what is. Stop manifesting. Start receiving. In the stillness, we will find that the question of how form appears becomes a lived answer, gentle, practical, unmistakable. And with that assurance, we breathe, we rest, we listen, and we are ready for what unfolds. Now, having laid aside the burden of making, we must ask the most sacred question: who is it that receives? Who stands at the open door when the wind of spirit moves? The answer is not in the inventory of your traits, not in the scrapbook of your roles, not in the thunder of your thoughts. Before any of that paraded into your life, a simple word remained, still remains, and will remain when even the stars grow quiet. I am. Before Abraham was, I am. John 8:58. This is not a riddle. It is your identity. It is the one life announcing itself as you, before the history, before the names, before the opinions about yourself, before the trying and the failing and the succeeding. I am. And the Master did not leave it there. He added the seal that dissolves fear. I and my Father are one. John 10:30. One, not two. One life, infinitely expressed. Do not tremble that oneness means the erasure of your distinctness. Is our individual entity maintained forever and forever, A most positive yes. Yes, without any mental hesitation or reservation. God is indivisible one, infinitely expressed, infinitely manifest, and your individuality is one of those infinite expressions. The ocean does not lose a wave by being ocean. The wave does not become other than the ocean by being a wave. The sun does not resent a ray. The ray does not stand apart from the sun. You are not absorbed into a blank impersonality. You are revealed as the very transparency through which the infinite shows forth its love, its wisdom, its grace. For ye are dead, and your life is hid with Christ in God, Colossians 3:3. Dead to what? Dead to the notion that you are a thinking persona trying to become spiritual. Alive to what? Alive to the I that precedes thought and abides as presence. Let us be plain. This body is not you. This is yours. This mind, with its memories and capacities and arguments, is not you. This is yours. The I that watched through the tiny eyes of your infancy, the adolescent's curiosity, the adult's responsibilities, that I has not aged, has not dimmed, has not been improved by practice or diminished by mistake. It simply is. You have worn many garments, and you will wear more, but the wearer is changeless. You cannot see me. You can only see my form. You cannot know me by the outline I cast. You know me, when you know me, by the presence that meets you in stillness. And so it is with you. When you consent to be known as that presence, not as the biography, you become receptive naturally, unforcedly, because presence does not strive, presence receives. Here is the release from the secret dread that surrender will dissolve you into a cloud of anonymity. Surrender does not erase you, it reveals you. It reveals the you that cannot be threatened by a job loss, cannot be flattered by a promotion, cannot be wounded by an insult, cannot be improved by a compliment. It reveals the you that is not in the tug of war of opposites, because it is not in the arena of human comparisons at all. Be still and know that I am God, Psalm 46:10. Be still and discover that the I that knows God is not the chattering mind, but the very presence of God as your awareness. In that stillness you will notice something wondrous. When thought grows quiet, you remain. When emotion subsides, you remain. When the world's claims rush past, you remain. That which remains is the receiver. And because that which remains is one with the Father, it cannot lack wisdom, it cannot lack love, it cannot lack the power to be exactly what it is. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. Hearing and following are natural to sheep. Receiving and responding are natural to you when you abide as the presence that you are. The mind attempts to manufacture a voice to follow. Presence simply hears. The persona rehearses its lines and defends its image. Presence has no image to protect, and so is transparent to divine impulse. The persona is a useful servant able to speak, to type, to drive, to calculate, but it is not the master. The master is the inner meekness that says, I do nothing of myself. The Father that dwelleth in me, he doeth the works. John 14:10. When fear whispers, if I stop thinking my life into being, will I disappear? Return to the eternal word. Before Abraham was, I am. When doubt insists, if I yield, will I be ignored? Answer with the covenant that cannot be broken. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God. Romans 8:38-39. If nothing can separate you from love, then nothing can separate you from yourself, for yourself is love appearing as you. Oneness does not flatten variety, it sanctifies it. Oneness does not silence your song, it tunes it to the music that was playing before you learned your first note. And so we move gently, firmly, from identification with the thinker to identification with the knower, from the role to the reality, from the reflected mask to the light that casts it, not by effort, but by consent, not by adding one more affirmation to your list, but by resting in a fact already established. I and the Father are one. Then the mind can relax into its proper place as an instrument of awareness, not the creator of life. Then the body becomes a blessed servant, not a tyrant or an idol. Then the world ceases to be a battlefield of powers and becomes a field of expression, God's own infinite expression appearing where you are. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Thine the life, thine the light, thine the love. I do not need to make an identity. I am content to discover the identity that is. In that contentment, fear loosens, striving softens, and the receiver awakens. And in that awakening, the question of who receives is answered by the one who always has, I am. Now let us look at the way this presence lives, not yesterday, not tomorrow, but as the very now in which you are breathing. I want to tell you a little story, and many of you have already heard its whisper in your heart. Imagine you and I in a rowboat out upon a broad lake. We measure our day by strokes, 1, 2, 3, waterfiles passed, shorelines inch nearer or fade. Our progress is sweat and count, our destination a dot that draws itself toward us because we pull and pull. Time is real to the rower. Distance is real to the rower. Effort is the god of the rower. And then by grace we step from the rowboat into a balloon. We rise. We do not travel to the far shore. The far shore is here. We do not pull the minutes across the water. The minutes dissolve into a single vast present. The village, the inlet, the lighthouse, the curve of the earth, what scattered points of when and where become a single seeing, a single awareness, a single now. Time is a measure for the one on the surface. It is no measure at the altitude of spirit. That little parable is the difference between living as a mind that makes and living as a presence that receives. God works in the infinite nowness. Hear it again, and let it say itself in you. God works in the infinite nowness. Life is not dripped to you hour by hour like medicine in a hospital. Life is the all-at-once fullness of God revealing itself as your today. Now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians 6-2. Not when you have finished your list, not when the vision board squares are filled, not when the calendar turns. Now, Jesus Christ the same yesterday and today and forever. Hebrews 13-8. The same because the reality in which he abides is not a moving timeline. It is the eternal presence of I am. And so we begin to release our worship of time. I say worship intentionally because in the world we have learned to bow to deadlines as if they were powers, to kiss the ring of schedules as if they were kings, to fasten our hope to countdowns and launch dates and fiscal quarters and 5-year dreams. I am not asking you to despise order, to miss your appointments, to forget your children's school concerts. I am saying, do not assign power to the calendar. Honor it, but do not fear it. Use it, but do not serve it. Not in clocks, but in God. Not in countdowns, but in consciousness. Take therefore no thought for the morrow, Matthew 6:34. Does not make you irresponsible. It frees you from the superstition that tomorrow can give you what God is not already being as your now. In the balloon of awareness, supply is not a future rescue. It is a present flow. Guidance is not a sign you beg for later. It is a voice that speaks as this breath. Creativity is not a product of accumulated pressure. It is a freshness that bubbles up where you stand. Today, if ye will hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Hebrews 3-7. Today, meaning always now. How do you hear? Not by straining for a frequency off to the left or to the right, but by becoming still enough to notice the impulse that arises without your manufacture. The idea to send the message now, not later. The nudge to reconcile with that friend now, not when pride has invented a strategy. The quiet certainty to bake 2 loaves and carry one to the neighbor. And in that simple act, an introduction opens that solves a question you thought belonged to next month. The instruction to check a number on a document, and there it is, the missing 0, and harmony appears before panic blossoms. This is supply, guidance, creativity as present impulse. This is the balloon view touching the seeming points with one awareness. Remember the Master's word, this is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Psalm 118-24. This is the day, this is the consciousness in which rejoicing is natural, because lack is not a fact, delay is not a law, obstruction is not a power. The mind says, I must make the day, and it begins cutting and pasting and promising and postponing. Present says, this is the day, and begins noticing the life in the room, noticing the wisdom rising without argument, noticing the simple sufficiency of what is at hand when seen in God, not seen in fear. My grace is sufficient for thee. 2 Corinthians 12-9. Sufficient when? Always now. Sufficient where? Always here. You have no time and I have no time, because God, being eternity, is not parceled into hours we must haul behind us. You may say, but the contract is due next Friday. Very well, Friday exists at the level of agreement among men. We will meet it, but we will meet it from the balloon, not the rowboat. In the rowboat, we push through dread and count the pages and curse the clock. In the balloon, we sit in the quiet for a few minutes. We let the mind unclench. We let the inner wind move. And in that poise, a paragraph writes itself. A call is placed to the only person who can answer the question. An unnecessary section is recognized and removed. Hours are redeemed not because we fought time, but because we rose out of its gravity, not by pressure, but by presence, not by hustle, but by hearing. Do you see now why vision boarding for a future can be a subtle delay? It is not that pictures are wrong. It is that sometimes they substitute for the immediate willingness to receive the divine idea that wants your hand today. We trade the felt nudge for an imagined outcome, and then we worship the picture while ignoring the voice. Let us reverse it. Let the only picture be this: I and the Father are one now. Let the only time be this now. Let the only power be this: God. Then watch how the visible forms fall into place, like shadows obedient to a sun that never moved. Beloved, rise. Rise into the infinite. Now, God works in the infinite nowness. Say it until the rowboat releases its oars from your hands. God works in the infinite nowness. In that. Now, what is needed is already flowing wisdom as this thought, love as this tenderness, provision as this right action, beauty as this fresh seeing. I am that I am, Exodus 3:14, is not an old name in a dry book. It is the living identity of the day that holds you, and so we live without hurry, without drag, without the ache of waiting for our own life to begin. It is begun. It is beginning. It is always beginning where you are. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, now and now and now. Now we come to the great reversal, the turning of the instrument back into its rightful place in the orchestra of being. Not by mental imaging, not by will, not by lining up thought against circumstance as if two armies on a field, not by hammer and forge beating red-hot concepts into shapes we like, not by demand, not by drama, not by deadlines we impose upon heaven. but by quiet awareness that receives, by a mind that is not a factory but a flute open to breath, by a heart that is not a marketplace but a sanctuary open to presence. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30-15. Returning and rest, quietness and confidence. That is the method of God, and therefore it is the method of harmony. You have seen this truth wherever true art has appeared. The great composer does not conjure a symphony by grinding gears of imagination. He sits back, he waits, he listens, and the theme enters the room as if it had been living there all along. The brush in the painter's hand becomes light when the painter stops trying to paint and starts allowing the seeing to paint through him. The poet lays down the cleverness and hears a cadence that writes itself. In science, the same. How many breakthroughs have arrived, not in the laboratory, at 2 a.m. with clenched jaw, but on a quiet walk, or in the shower, or upon waking, when the mind had relaxed enough to be permeable. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, James 1:17. Cometh down, descends, arrives. Ideas are not manufactured, they are received. And in healing, both of body and of circumstance, the truest workers will tell you they do not argue with disease or wrestle with lack. They withdraw. They become still. They yield the sense of two powers, and in that yielding the one, power announces itself as peace. Then the right word, the right touch, the right adjustment is done often so simply that the mind protests. Surely it cannot be this easy, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Matthew 11:30. Easy and light because the burden is not on the human will, the burden is on God, and God is not burdened. Let this be plain and let it be final in us. Prayer is not projection, prayer is reception. Prayer is not the sending of wishes up a ladder of words. Prayer is the opening of the window that has always faced the Sunday. Answered prayer is not the result of a persuasive speech to deity. Answered prayer is the result of a divine impulse felt within, not argued for, not dramatized, felt recognized, consented to. The Master said, "My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you," John 14:27. The world gives by transaction, by bargain, by effort. Spirit gives by impartation, and we know we have received when the sign of peace is upon it. How then shall we discern the voice from the echo? The received idea carries with it its own credential. It is clothed in peace. It does not shout. It is the still small voice. 1 Kings 19:12. It does not argue for itself, for it has nothing to defend. It does not arrive with anxiety at the door, demanding you obey or else. It arrives like morning, inevitable and gentle. It bears a lightness, a quiet certainty that does not need many words. Often it is small, make the call, send the note, rest now, wait till noon, and yet its smallness opens into wideness when obeyed. It is modest in tone and mighty in effect because it comes from the one power. You can test it in your own being. When an idea descends, notice whether your breath eases, whether your shoulders drop, whether a sweetness touches the edge of your attention. That sweetness is the seal. That ease is the signature. That is not the world's adrenaline. That is Christ's peace. By contrast, the mind-made scheme is full of argument. It insists, it pressures, it calculates escape routes. It offers an immediate sugar of excitement, then leaves a bitterness of doubt. It requires you to maintain it moment by moment, lest it disintegrate under its own strain. It toils and it spins. But consider the lilies, Matthew 6. No toiling, no spinning, and yet Solomon could not dress himself as they are dressed. When we stop using the mind as a forge and begin to use it as an instrument, We find that thought is most beautiful when it is transparent, when it transmits an idea instead of trying to create one. Then even our planning becomes holy, because it is merely the translation of a divine impulse into steps, and this is how it looks in a day that seems very ordinary. The artist sits not to produce, but to attend. A brushstroke is given. He obeys. The businesswoman reviews options without fear and waits until the one stands up inside her with quiet authority. She obeys. The parent, concerned for a child, refuses to engage the arena of fear with fear's weapons, grows still, and hears, read with them tonight, leave the lecture. They obey. The healer enters a room, sets aside memory and technique, acknowledges one presence, one power, and feels the divine impulse to lay a hand or to say nothing at all. They obey. Always this, they sit back and let the idea come. Then they obey. Obedience is the bridge from invisible to visible. When the idea is of God, obedience is sweet, and the form follows as shadow follows substance. Remember, there is no second power organizing against your good. There is not a hostile universe to be overcome by superior imaging. The infinite way recognizes God as the only power. We are not trying to add God to conditions to make them behave. We are resting in God to see that harmony already is, and to receive the form in which harmony wishes to show itself today. This is why the received idea is calm. It comes without the tug of war. It knows no enemy. It carries with it a smile. And if in the moment of receiving you feel no smile, wait. Do not rush to make an answer. Wait until the peace has arrived, and then act from peace. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. Be still and know not. Imagine, not force, not bargain. Know. Knowledge in spirit is not head knowledge. It is oneness realized. From that realization, the divine impulse moves like sap in a vine, and the branch bears fruit without self-consciousness. I am the vine, ye are the branches. John 15:5. The branch does not reason how to bear. It abides, and bearing happens. So with you. Abide, receive, obey, not by might nor by power, but by my Spirit. In that order, your mind finds its rightful dignity as servant, your day finds its rightful ease as flow, and your life reveals itself to be not a project to manage, but a presence to witness. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. Therefore, thine the ideas, thine the timing, thine the unfolding. I do nothing of myself. The Father within doeth the works. We consent, we receive, we obey. And in that holy simplicity, guidance, creativity, and supply appear as the unlabored shadows of an idea already complete in God's infinite nowness. Now we must take up a statement that sounds like a riddle until it becomes a doorway. You have never seen a tree. You have never seen a hand. You have never seen a person. What you see are your concepts, forms, outlines, shadows of invisible spiritual ideas. Reality itself is unseen, changeless, whole, while we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. 2 Corinthians 4:18. God is spirit, John 4:24. Spirit is not measured by inches, weighed by ounces, summarized by photographs. Spirit is the substance. What eyes of flesh behold are the garments spirit wears to make itself intelligible at the level of sense. The garments change, the wearer does not. The leaves bud and fall. The life of tree is not born and is not buried. This is why you have never seen a tree. You have only seen your concept of it, while the tree, the spiritual idea of life expressing as rootedness, as fruitfulness, as greening vitality remains invisible, indestructible, forever. Take this same light and bring it to identity. This is not you. This is yours. This face, this frame, this voice, these are garments you wear to walk among forms. Precious garments to be cared for and honored, but not you. The eye that abides is the seer, not the seen. The knower, not the known. You cannot see me. You can only see the form that reports me. You cannot touch me. You can only touch the instrument through which I make myself touched. And you, beloved, are that invisible eye, the presence that remains when the mirror is covered and the room grows still. Set your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. Colossians 3:2 does not mean despise the earth. It means love, the reality that shines through the earth's forms, and refuse to mistake the lantern for the light within it. So with supply, the world says supply is a pile, a stack of currency, a closet of goods, a pantry of jars. We do not deny the joy of bread on a table, shoes on feet, a roof that keeps rain a friend, but we do deny that piles are the source of supply. Supply is not counted. Supply is conceived. Supply is the divine idea of right activity, right placement, right circulation, life being about its business as you. Money is not supply. Money is a form that supply may wear for an errand or two. When Jesus said, labor not for the meat which perisheth, John 6:27, he was inviting us out of shadow chasing into substance abiding. The meat perishes, the idea of nourishment does not. The coin tarnishes, the idea of exchange does not. The job title appears and vanishes, the idea of usefulness, of function in the body remains. When you receive the idea of your usefulness, when you hear where, how, and with whom life will express itself through you today, the forms will appear obediently, like cast shadows moving as the sun moves. Let me give you a homely picture. There was a little town that suffered a dry summer. The townsfolk ran with buckets to the river, filling and hauling, arguing over whose bucket was larger. A stranger came and listened. He did not rush to grab a bucket. He walked upstream. He left the arguments, the comparisons, the splashing, and he found the spring choked with leaves. He knelt, he cleared the leaves. The river answered for everyone, not by more buckets, but by the spring, not by more effort, but by source. Do you see how this speaks to us? We have labored with buckets, visualizing piles, counting coins, worrying time, and all the while the spring, the divine idea, waited to be cleared of the leaves of fear and the branches of belief in two powers. For with thee is the fountain of life. In thy light shall we see light. Psalm 36-9. In thy light, in the recognition of spiritual idea, we see the forms we need when we need them, without strain. The baker understands this. He does not chase loaves down the street. He tends the yeast. He keeps the starter alive. He feeds it, watches it, honors it, and loaves appear every morning. Tend the yeast of idea within you. Guard the starter of your awareness, the sense of one power, one presence, one source. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. Seek not the added things, seek the kingdom. Seek not the loaves, tend the leaven. Seek not the river with more buckets, open the spring. Then forms money, contacts, open doors, proper timing arrive as addenda, as the natural shall be added of an idea already alive. This has a practical mark you can test. When you chase forms, anxiety clings to the chase. You wake and think of digits. You sit and think of angles. You hurry and think of others as obstacles or instruments. When you receive the idea, peace accompanies it as its own credential. The instruction is singular and modest. Write the email now. Review that file. Call that name. Visit that store. Rest, and because it is born of the spring, it carries the authority to produce its corresponding form. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Faith is not a clenched jaw. Faith is the quiet certainty of idea as substance. And so the unseen is evidence enough to begin. Begin where the idea meets you, and let the shadow measure itself on the ground. This vision changes how we see each other as well. Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment. John 7:24. The person across from you is not the mask of mood, not the sum of yesterday's errors, not the costume of gender or age. They are a spiritual idea, eternally unfolding, one with the same source that breathes you. When you refuse to handle them as a thing to be moved or used, when you receive who they are in God, the relationship clarifies and forms words, agreements, help, cancellations that are helpful, align without manipulation. We stop wrestling shadows and begin walking in light. Do you begin to feel the relief? Receive the spiritual idea. Forms are its effortless shadows, not by grasping, but by granting, not by making, but by meeting the idea as it descends. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, James 1:17, not above the ceiling, but above sense, above effort, above fear, descending into your awareness as the gentle nudge you can trust. And then we say, with calm, with gratitude, thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Thine the idea, thine the unfolding. I do nothing of myself. The Father within doeth the works. I abide in the unseen, and I watch the scene arrange itself like obedient light at noon. Now we come to the end of the rope pulling, the weary contest of mind against matter, of person against problem. Lay it down. If God is the only power, there is no second force to push against your good. If God is the only life, there is no rival vitality to animate disease. If God is the only presence, there is no place where he is not, and therefore no gap into which lack can creep and establish a throne. This is not a slogan. It is the revelation that dissolves effort at its root. Tug of war presupposes two ends of a rope. Oneness leaves no rope and no ends. God is not divisible. God is indivisible. One infinitely expressed, infinitely manifest. And in the light of that, one discord is not an entity. It is a suggestion without authority, a shadow without substance, an echo heard only while attention wanders from the voice. This is why we say, with a smile that has tried both sides, we do not need any God to fix problems. We do not need a deity imported into a battlefield. Harmony already is to be realized. The infinite way recognizes God as the only power. Our practice, then, is not to recruit God to our cause, but to retire the belief in a second cause. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Paul asks and lets the litany ring. Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine or nakedness or peril or sword? Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. Nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God. Romans 8:35-39. Listen, more than conquerors, not conquerors by superior force, but more than conquerors by realized oneness, by finding there was no second power to conquer. Consider the master asleep in the boat while the storm raged. The disciples leaned into tug of war. Wind on one end, frightened men on the other. They woke him with the cry most of us know well, carest thou not that we perish? And he, awakening not to a conflict, but in the calm of one presence, said only, Peace, be still, Mark 4:39. The words did not wrestle, they revealed. They were not commands hurled across a chasm, they were recognition voiced aloud, the authority of one, power acknowledging itself. The sea did not submit to a stronger sea. The image of storm yielded to the fact of peace. So with us, the end of making outcomes is the acceptance of one power. The compulsion to manage, to manipulate, to push and pull and plot is born of the superstition of twowness, a good to be created and an evil to be avoided, a supply to be manufactured and a lack to be outrun. When oneness is realized, there is nothing to manufacture, nothing to outrun. There is only presence becoming form as needed here and now. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. If thine is the power, none remains for discord. If thine is the kingdom, nothing remains outside thy jurisdiction. If thine is the glory, no other light is necessary to reveal what already is. Try this where the temptation appears sharpest. A symptom speaks loudly, a bill arrives, an accusation is thrown, a deadline looms. The reflex of the world is fight or flight, tighten the jaw, intensify the prayer of pleading, gather allies to your cause, hurl thoughts at the thing. Withdraw the homage you have been paying to the appearance. Step off the field where two banners fly. Close the eyes for a few breaths, not as magic, but as acknowledgement. I and the Father are one. One presence fills this room. One life animates this body. One law operates as order, as balance, as timing. Be still and know that I am God. Do not try to stop the storm. Consent to the fact that peace is the only atmosphere of God and therefore the only atmosphere here. Wait until the sweetness, the ease, the quiet credential of reality touches your awareness. Then act or do not act as you are bidden. You will find that the necessary word is placed on your tongue without heat, that the overlooked solution stands up from the page, that the phone call placed in calm finds reception where panic would have met resistance, not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. I speak to you as one who knows the tug on the rope. I have argued with bills and with bodies, and I have watched the argument collapse in the presence of a single, simple realization. There is no second power. The sins, the diseases, the lacks, these live as a state of belief, not as powers. When belief is withdrawn and one is acknowledged, they dissolve like mist against the morning. You will notice the sign, peace first, then form. If peace has not appeared, wait. Do not run into the arena too soon. Let one be one, let God be God. Then the next step will be given, and it will be light. Remember the prayer that is not a plea, but a proclamation. Thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory. Say it not to make it true, but to let it be true in your awareness. I and my Father are one is the end of tug of war. Before Abraham was, I am is the end of time anxiety. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ is the end of fear's authority. In this resting, the hand opens, the rope falls, and outcomes cease to be projects we manufacture. They become shadows of an idea already complete, movements of a life already whole. Rest then in one power. Consent to oneness. Let God run the universe and watch how your small universe this day arranges itself in quiet harmony without your strain. Thine is the kingdom. Thine is the power. Thine is the glory, now and now and now. Now let us do the simplest, holiest thing of this day. We will open 3 doors of silence and begin living as receivers. Not tomorrow, today. This is the day which the Lord hath made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. Psalm 118 to 24 said it now, not as a wish, but as a consecration. 3 little appointments, 5 to 7 minutes each morning, midday, evening. The first, as the day begins, before the machinery of thought starts its whirring. The second, around the middle, between tasks, between calls, even sitting in a parked car if you must, but with the engine of mind at rest. The third, in the evening, before sleep, as a benediction to your day. Put it in your calendar if you like. Lay a small notebook where you will sit. You are not arranging to get something. You are consenting to be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46 to 10. This is not performance. This is willingness. When the hour arrives, we begin with step 1, physical stillness. Sit or stand if you are more wakeful that way, but be still. Let the soles of your feet feel the ground, land or sea or air. Wherever you are still in God. Rest the hands, open or folded. Let the shoulders drop as if they remember a burden they need not carry. Take 3 gentle breaths, not as magic, but as a way of softening attention. Inhale naturally. Exhale. And on the inner exhale, whisper without sound, I and the Father are one. John 10:30. Again, breathe. And let the whisper move within you as identity, not as affirmation to make something happen. I and the Father are one. Once more, like a feather settling, I and the Father are one. Before Abraham was, I am John 8:58. You are not trying to create stillness. You are recognizing the stillness that is before thought. Step 2 is a doxology and a release. Quietly, inwardly say, Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Matthew 6:13. Not mine to make, not mine to manage, not mine to fear. Thine is the kingdom, thine the order, thine the realm of real influence. Thine the power, no second pressure, no rival energy, no tug of war to join. Thine the glory, thine the beauty, thine the result, thine the unfolding. Say it once, twice, until it says itself. Then rest. No reaching, no bargaining, no catalog of needs. Like a window turned to the morning, be what you are, open. If thoughts pass like birds, let them fly. If the body fidgets, smile and return. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Isaiah 30:15. We are not sending anything out. We are consenting to receive. Step 3, listen without reaching. The prophets called it a still small voice, 1 Kings 19:12. The Master said, My sheep hear my voice, John 10:27. Do not scan the inner sky for fireworks. Do not strain at the horizon. Just notice what arises without your manufacture. It may be a word, wait. It may be a picture, a face you have avoided. It may be a directive, check the second page. It may be only a quiet, unreasoned assurance like a warmth along the edges of attention. The sign is peace. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you. John 14:27. If there is a nudge and it carries the sweetness of ease, accept it as a divine idea touching your awareness. If there is no nudge, then peace is the nudge. The message for this sitting is simply, I am with thee always. Matthew 28:20. And you rise refreshed. God works in the infinite nowness. You cannot be too late for what is eternally present. Step 4 honors the idea by treating it as substance. Gently open your little notebook. At the top, write the date and the time, morning, midday, or evening. Then record only the essence of what was received. Not a paragraph, Not an argument. The bare seed. Call Anna. Rest now. Review the contract total. Bake 2 loaves. Wait till noon. Give thanks. If nothing specific appeared, write peace only. That is ample. Resist the mind's habit of decorating the seed with explanations, timelines, or outcomes. We are not making a case. We are receiving a word. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. Hebrews 11:1. Treat the unseen idea as substantial by letting it be itself uncluttered. This simple journaling trains the mind to be an instrument, transparent, honest, faithful in little. Step 5 is the seal. Close in gratitude and act only on a clear, peaceful impulse, no pushing. Bow inwardly and say, "Thank you, Father. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory." Then rise and do what peace said, simply, without flourish, without announcing a program to yourself or to others. If the instruction was to wait, wait. If it was to call, call. If it was to rest, rest. If there was no instruction, do the next ordinary thing in front of you with the awareness that presence goes before you to make the crooked places straight. Isaiah 45:2. Refuse the temptation to turn a quiet nudge into a campaign. No pushing, no chasing shadows. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Exodus 14:13, as it appears in a sentence sent at the right moment, in a drawer open to the paper you need, in a tone softened before a meeting. Now return to the day. When the clock or the body tells you it is the middle hour, keep your appointment. Again, 5 to 7 minutes. Perhaps you step out into sunlight. Perhaps you close an office door. Perhaps you sit behind the steering wheel in a quiet lane. Repeat the same 3 breaths, the same inner whisper, "I and the Father are one," and the same doxology, "Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory." Rest. Listen without reaching. Record the essence. Close in gratitude. Act only on peace. If the mind brings up the morning's note and wants to debate it, smile and let it pass. We are not jurors, we are branches abiding in a vine. I am the vine, ye are the branches, John 15:5. The sap flows without our analysis. And in the evening, before the day is folded, sit once more. This time there may be a sweetness, as if the soul recognizes home, or there may be restlessness. Let both be as they are. 3 breaths. I and the Father are one. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Silence, listening, recording, gratitude. Then sleep as one who has entrusted the universe to God. I will both lay me down in peace and sleep. For thou, Lord, only makest me dwell in safety. Psalm 4-8. You are not making outcomes in the night. You are consenting to be carried by the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps. This threefold quiet is not a charm to turn stones into bread. It is bread already, the daily bread of receptivity. It is the spring cleared of leaves. It is the yeast tended. It is the balloon rising above the rowboat's counting. It is how we say with our minutes, not merely with our mouths, that God is the only power. You will notice, perhaps even the first day, that a hardness in your tone softens, that a knot in your chest unwinds, that a word arrives before a tangle, that a small correction prevents a larger trouble. Do not make a ledger of proofs. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you, Matthew 6:33. Let the adding be God's business. Let the opening be yours. Beloved, let this be our consecration today. 3 doors of silence, morning, midday, evening, 5 to 7 minutes each. Physical stillness, 3 gentle breaths. I and the Father are one. Doxology, Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Rest. Listen without reaching. Record the essence, date and time, without embroidery. Close in gratitude. Act only on clear, peaceful impulse, no pushing. If there is one sentence to take with you as you set your reminders, let it be this: I am content to let God run the universe and to let God run this next minute. Thine is the kingdom. Thine is the power. Thine is the glory. And because I and the Father are one, I receive what is mine to receive, and I do what is mine to do in quietness and in confidence today. Now we place this into the cadence of a day because realization is not an event. It is a climate. God works in the infinite nowness. And so our practice is not to build a tower once a week and then live under its shadow. Our practice is to open a window again and again until the air itself becomes our atmosphere. Frequent, brief returns make receptivity the climate of your day. Not one long strain at dawn and then forgetfulness. Not a crisis-driven cry at dusk, but a quiet, gentle rhythm, 8, 10, 12 times in your waking hours, every 60 to 90 minutes, where you become still for a breath or two and let the one be one. Let this be plain. Set a chime to sound every hour or so. Use the doorways of your life as sacraments. Whenever you cross a threshold into the office, out of the car, through the kitchen, let the crossing be a cue to inner stillness. Before you dial, before you hit send, lay a hand lightly upon your heart and remember presence. This is not superstition. It is training. The mind learns to stop forging and start listening. 10 seconds will do. 30 seconds will do. Not a performance, not a heaving of effort, but a withdrawal of attention from objects and a simple acknowledgement. God is. I and the Father are one. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Then hush, listen. If nothing comes, do not manufacture. The silence itself is guidance. It is adjusting the inner climate so that when the next word is spoken or the next step is taken, it is spoken and taken in peace. Here is the method as I live it and commend it to you. When the cue sounds or the threshold meets you or your hand touches your heart, stop. Close the physical eyes if you can. If not, soften the gaze. Withdraw attention from persons and things. Acknowledge God is here, now, the only presence, the only power, the only life. Whisper within, I do nothing of myself. The Father within doeth the works. Wait 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3. Notice the easing of the shoulders, the softening of the breath, the hint of sweetness at the edge of awareness. If a word arises, receive it. If a picture, receive it. If only stillness, receive it. Then return to the task, not as one who must make a world behave, but as one who abides in a world already held. This is prayer as reception, reduced to a living seed that you plant 8 to 12 times, and the harvest is a day suffused with quiet competency. Alongside this cadence, practice mental hygiene. The atmosphere of the world is suggestion of powers in people, powers in conditions, powers in things. Do not let them enter unexamined. When a headline shouts, when a personality flares, when a price rises or falls, when a symptom whispers, say within with kindness and firmness, Thou hast no power. Thine is the power. No person has power over me or for me. No condition dictates my good. No thing is my source or my threat. God is the only power. Be not afraid of sudden fear. Proverbs 3:25. This is not denial of appearances. This is refusal to grant them authority. We consign authority back to its owner, and authority is one. 12 times a day, consciously reject the superstition of twoness, A dozen times a day, return authority to God. This keeps the mind translucent, an instrument, not a forge. Curate your inputs. We are porous creatures. What we hear and read colors our inner light. Limit noise. Do not gorge on anxieties served by men who make a living stirring winds. Instead, insert small readings that lift, not agitate. A verse from the Psalms, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." A line from the Master, "My peace I give unto you." A few sentences from a page that has proven itself to breathe spirit into you. 10 lines at breakfast, 2 lines at noon, a paragraph before bed, or a minute with a recording scripture spoken softly, a hymn played plainly, a poem whose cadence slows the heart. We are not seeking emotional sweetness. We are seeking spiritual altitude. Choose materials that turn you Godward, not inward to emotion's merry-go-round. In thy light shall we see light. Little sips, many times, and the day clears. Attach practice to the ordinary. When you wash your hands, let the water remind you. Cleanse me from the superstition of 2 powers. When the kettle hums, let the sound be your bell. God is. When the browser opens, when the elevator door closes, when the car is shifted into park, each is a doorway. Pause, withdraw, acknowledge, listen. Before the meeting, hand to heart. Before the difficult call, hand to heart. Before you set price or send proposal, hand to heart. This is not ritual for its own sake. It is consecration of function. It is the difference between running a day by might and letting the day unfold by spirit. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Proverbs 3-6. All thy ways, even emails and errands, even invoices and laundry. And yes, when your life permits, deepen the withdrawal. A quiet quarter hour at dawn. 5 minutes behind a closed door at noon. A gentle walk without a device at dusk. But I tell you plainly, quality of quiet over quantity of activity. 1 minute in true rest is worth more than 30 in strained performance. The object is not hours clocked. The object is atmosphere transformed. Let the many micro returns give you the climate, and if a longer rest is given to you by grace, receive it as you would receive any divine idea, without strain, without pride, without schedule worship. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength. Returning and rest, brief, frequent, faithful. You can test this in an ordinary week. One of our friends set a chime on her phone to sing softly every 75 minutes. At first she sighed at the interruption. In a day or 2 she began to welcome it. She would close her eyes, breathe, say within, God is, and then listen. Emails that had been bobbed met answers that were simple and without heat. A solution she had strained for on Tuesday arrived whole while she stood in the doorway between kitchen and hall. A purchase she had been pressing toward fell away without loss, and another avenue opened of its own accord. Nothing spectacular, everything natural. Peace first, then form. Not by might nor by power, but by my spirit. Zechariah 4-6. And she laughed softly when she saw it. No extra hustle, no extra noise, only extra quiet, and the day arranged itself. Do you see the mercy of this? We are not asked to add a burden. We are invited to lay one down every hour. We are not asked to make outcomes. We are invited to receive the idea a dozen times a day and obey it when it comes. We are not asked to monitor the universe. We are invited to acknowledge the one who runs it. So let us set the chime. Let us make the doorways holy. Let us lift a hand to the heart before we speak. Let us weed our inputs and water our roots. Let us reject the lie of second powers and consent to the fact that thine is the power. Then the day becomes climate. The climate becomes character. The character becomes a life that breathes peace. Be still and know that I am God. I and the Father are one. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, now and now and now. Now let us look at how this shows itself in a day. You have sat in the quiet. You have whispered, I and the Father are one. You have bowed in the doxology, thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, and then you have listened without reaching. What arrives is often smaller than the mind expects, so small that a hurried mind would miss it. But remember, the seed does not announce the forest, it only contains it. The divine idea enters as a simple, peaceful directive. Obey it without dramatizing. My sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me. John 10:27. Following is humble and immediate. It does not require a parade. A woman in the midst of a tangled project sat for her midday quiet. No blueprint descended. One word did: simplify. She rose and cleared her desk of 3 piles, canceled one meeting, and wrote a single honest note. We can accomplish this in 2 steps, not 5. The reply came within the hour agreement. A path opened. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord, Psalm 37:23. Notice, not brainstorm, not forced, ordered. Small obedience bears disproportionate fruit because it carries the authority of source. Do not dress the nudge in costumes of urgency. Let it be what it is, and do it. So with creativity. The world says, force novelty, strain for originality, torture the clay until it looks like you want it to look. The Spirit says, receive the motif, the theme, the sentence, then craft faithfully. In the beginning was the Word, John 1:1. The idea precedes its form, and the form is grace when it serves the idea. A composer went to his piano not to make music, but to listen. For minutes there was nothing, and then a 3-note shape arrived, quiet and certain. He did not smother it with flourishes. He turned it, he tended it, he let it breathe, and a piece appeared that listeners later called fresh. Freshness had not been manufactured. It had been permitted. A writer took her morning quiet and received a line. Begin with the kitchen light. She resisted too ordinary, but she obeyed. Wrote the plain sentence, and the story walked out of the light into the room. Not by might, nor by power, but by my spirit, Zechariah 4:6. Craft is holy when it is servant to revelation. Hint to the mind. Let the unseen lead. Let the hands follow. Supply unfolds by the same law. Supply is the right idea of usefulness becoming visible as right activity, right placement, right circulation. Money is not the cause. It is a faithful servant when it is needed. A carpenter in a slow season entered the evening quiet and felt, without argument, fix Mrs. Alvarez's back step. There was no contract, no promise of return. He took his tools and repaired the wobble before dinner. The next morning, a neighbor, who had watched him from across the street, called to ask for a quote on a porch. Then a week later, 2 more called. He smiled at the ledger and said within, thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. Added, not chased. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Luke 6:38. Not because you traded favors, but because circulation belongs to the nature of life, and you placed yourself in its stream. Relationships answer to the same gentleness. The mind wants speeches. The Spirit often gives a single tone: apologize, wait, bless. A man, ready to argue his case in a tense email, stopped at his midday door of silence. The quiet word was, do not send. He waited at 4 p.m. A second impulse came. Call, but begin with thanks. He obeyed. A soft answer turneth away wrath. Proverbs 15:1. The call ended not in scorched earth, but in understanding and a new agreement better than the one he had been ready to defend. Another time the nudge was simply, bless her. No words, no performance, just a sincere inward benediction. The rigidity between them softened in a week, without a single policy being debated. Bless them that curse you, and pray for them which despitefully use you, Luke 6:28, is not ethics alone, it is physics of spirit. You align with the one, power and relationship forms obey. Healing, too, is the translation of divine idea into experience. And usually the first impulse here is startling in its simplicity. Be still. Withdraw homage from the appearance. Rest in one power. A man with a throbbing head reached for distraction and then remembered peace first, then form. He sat, whispered, I and the Father are one, and waited until the sweet ease that signals reality touched the edges of awareness. Then another gentle direction arose. Drink water. Lie down for 20 minutes. He did, without bargaining, without superstition, and the spasm released. Another time, the inward word was to take a slow walk in the afternoon sun. Another time, to cancel an evening appointment and be quiet. You see? We do not make protocols. We receive the word for this moment. I am the Lord that healeth thee, Exodus 15:26. Sometimes the Master's voice says, as to the blind man, go, wash in the pool of Siloam, John 9-7. A plain act that becomes sacramental because it is obedience, not technique. Not wrestling a second power, but consenting to one. How shall you know you are aligned? The signs are modest and unmistakable. Right timing, as if unseen coordination has been working while you rested an email, lands the hour you are moved to write. You step into the lobby just as the one you needed to see arrives without appointment. Unlabored openings, a door that would not budge, swings with a fingertip when the latches approach from peace. Disproportionate fruit from small obedience, you place the net on the right side. And behold, there are so many fish you cannot draw them all at once. John 21-6. You notice an absence of strain, an ease in the limbs, a kindness in your voice that was not rehearsed. You did not push, you permitted. You did not invent, you received, and forms guidance, creativity, supply, stood up like shadows obedient to a sun already risen. Keep watch over one thing. Do not turn the examples into a method to make outcomes. Let them be encouragements that testify God works in the infinite nowness. Stay simple. When the peaceful directive appears, obey it without dramatizing. When nothing appears but peace, let peace be the directive. When the mind begins to make again, return at once to presence with the prayer that is a proclamation. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. I do nothing of myself, the Father within me, he doeth the works. John 14:10. In this humility, the unseen idea translates itself into right form without strain, and you go about your day as one quietly carried. Now let us speak of the honest moment when the mind forgets itself and starts making again. It will. Do not be dismayed. The tide of habit runs strong, and even after many sweet returns, we will feel the old reflex reach for the controls, to press, to plan, to persuade outcomes into shape. The sign that this is happening is simple. The piece is gone and a little engine is humming in the chest. Remember this, the cure for effort is not more effort. The cure for effort is immediate return to presence and one power. Watch for the kindly red flags that tell you the mind has slipped back to the forge. Urgency is one. that breathless now or never that narrows the world to a single result. Bargaining with God is another. The little prayers that say, if you give me this, I will give you that, as if we were merchants in a market and not children in a kingdom. Mental rehearsals betray us. We start staging scenes inside the head, what I will say, what they will answer, how I will parry and land the final word, as if salvation were in our line. And then there is the telltale fatigue after so-called prayer. You close the silence more tired than you entered, as if you had fought a match with shadows. These are mercies, every one of them, not condemnations. They simply whisper, you have slipped from receiving into making. Stop. Return. How do we return? With a brief, gentle litany and a 1-minute reset. Not by might, nor by power, but by my Spirit. Not in persons, not in places, not in things. Safety is in thee. Close the eyes if you can. Withdraw attention from the object, the person, the clock. Acknowledge one power. God is. Say within, I and the Father are one. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory. Be still and know that I am God. Now hush. Do not push an answer. Do not finish the rehearsal you interrupted. Listen. If a word rises, let it be enough. If only quiet comes, let quiet be the correction. Release the outcome again. Deliberately draw the hand of thought away from the lever and place it open upon your heart. In 60 seconds, the atmosphere shifts. Peace first, then form. You may test this in the heat of a small storm. A friend had a difficult conversation ahead. He could feel his mind sharpening arguments all day, his jaw setting, his inner theater running scene after scene to secure a verdict. He recognized the red flags and stepped into a stairwell for 1 minute. He closed his eyes and said, God is, I and the Father are one. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, not by might, nor by power, but by thy Spirit. Not in this person, not in a clever phrase. Safety is in thee. He waited. The rehearsals tried to continue. He let them pass. After a half minute, a simple inner word rose. Ask first. That was all. He went to the meeting and asked a single, clean question. The air softened. The answer he had been preparing to fight against dissolved in a new understanding neither had considered. No magic. No wrestling. Peace first, then form. Regarding delay, this will tempt you softly or fiercely. I have prayed. Where is the result? The calendar taps its foot. The inbox stares. The symptom lingers. Remember, God works in the infinite nowness. The pressure of dates and hours belongs to the rowboat that counts strokes. Reality lives in the balloon that rises into the one sky where what is needed is already flowing. Your sense of when is the mind's measure. Your supply, your answer, your health are ideas in God, and ideas do not ripen by clocks. My times are in thy hand, Psalm 31-15. They that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength, Isaiah 40-31. Waiting here does not mean postponement of good. It means abiding in presence until the seed shows its leaf. The sign remains the same. Peace first, then form. When peace settles, you will find that what is to be done is given without strain, and the calendar will bow to it. Do not accuse yourself when you catch the mind making again. We all forget. I forget. I have walked out of a sweet silence and 5 minutes later been bargaining with a bill. I have finished a prayer and found myself exhausted from pushing. The remedy is always return, never self-accusation. Neither do I condemn thee, John 8:11, is the voice of spirit to the part of you that stumbles. You do not earn your way back by scolding. You slip back by consent. A single turning of attention heals an hour of anxiety. Say within, God is, I and the Father are one, thine is the kingdom, and rest. Another temptation is to transfer your hope to a person, a place, a thing, or a plan. If only this client says yes. If only this city opens a door. If only this supplement does its work. If only this strategy holds. Watch the word only, that is the rope pulling you into twones. Correct it at once. Not in persons, not in places, not in things. Safety is in thee. God is the only power. If a person, place, or thing is used, it will be an instrument, not a source, a shadow of an idea already complete. You have never seen a tree. You have seen your concept of a tree. So too with supply and healing and right place. Receive the idea, let the form be its effortless shadow. Thine is the power. If you have acted ahead of peace, do not double down. Stop, step back, breathe, close the eyes, and return to one power. Our impulse, when we find we have sent the email too soon or spoken too sharply, is to send two more or to explain ourselves into exhaustion. Withdraw. The spirit that guided you yesterday will guide you now. Be still and know. Sometimes the correction will be to do nothing further. Sometimes it will be to apologize simply. Sometimes to take a small, unimagined step. When the mind starts making again, the first obedience is cessation, not by might, not by intellect, by my spirit. Let us make this immensely practical. The moment you feel urgency, bargaining, rehearsing, or fatigue, stop. 1 minute. Eyes closed if possible. God is. I and the Father are one. Thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory, not in persons, not in places, not in things. Safety is in thee. Listen, release, obey only a peaceful nudge. If none comes, carry on with the next obvious duty in quietness, refusing to consult the clock for proof. Repeat as often as needed, 8, 10, 12 times, 100 times. Return without drama. This is how we let God run the universe and this next minute. And so we are not surprised by temptation. We are trained for it. When the mind starts making again, we smile as one who knows the way home. The cure for effort is immediate return to presence and one power. Thine is the kingdom. Thine is the power. Thine is the glory. Before Abraham was, I am. I and the Father are one. God works in the infinite nowness. Peace first, then form. And in that peace we find that what needed doing is done, what needed saying is said, and what needed leaving is left, without struggle and without boast. Beloved, let us end as we began, with a most positive no to mind-made magic, and an even greater yes to the presence that is already here. We have moved from making outcomes to receiving divine ideas, from the tiredness of thought to the ease of stillness, from clinging to appearances to resting in reality. Before Abraham was, I am, John 8:58. I and the Father are one, John 10:30. This has not been a seminar in techniques. It has been a remembering of identity, a turning of the face from the forge to the window, from strain to trust, from concepts to the invisible substance that casts every healthy shadow. We do not bring God to a scene. We bear witness that God is the scene's only life, only law, only love. Peace and provision are secured in letting, not making. So we consecrate the way we will walk from this moment. Today, 3 doors of silence, morning, midday, evening, 5 to 7 minutes each. Not to pry open heaven, but to consent to it. Thereafter, the gentle rhythm of 8 to 12 returns, every hour or so, a breath, a whisper, a listening. This is how the climate is established. This is how the mind ceases from forging and learns to be an instrument, transparent, receptive, faithful. Be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10. You need not heave the universe into order. You need only be inwardly still long enough to notice that order is the way of God and you are included in it. We seal this with the prayer that is a proclamation and a posture. Thine is the kingdom, thine is the power, thine is the glory. Matthew 6:13. Let it say itself until it no longer comes from your lips but from your life. Thine is the kingdom, one presence, one life, one mind, indivisible and infinitely expressed. Not my little kingdom of preferences, not the jittery kingdom of headlines, but the vast, quiet government of spirit. Thine is the power, no rival force, no second will, no arm of flesh to fear or trust. Thine the effortless might by which lilies are clothed and stars are set upon their courses. Thine is the glory, not mine to capture, not mine to display, but thine to reveal, thine to shine, thine to be. Turn the words like a jewel and let each facet light the others. Thine is the kingdom. Thine is the power, thine is the glory, and now willingness. The whole way is contained here. Be willing to obey small, clear impulses and be unwilling to manufacture outcomes. If the word comes, call, call. If the word comes, wait, wait. If the word comes, give thanks, give thanks. If nothing comes but peace, let peace be the directive, let peace be the deed. This is not passivity, this is the most creative receptivity. My peace I give unto you, not as the world giveth, give I unto you, John 14:27. In that peace you will find timing that rearranges schedules without your strain, supply that appears without the transaction of anxiety, creativity that unfolds without the engine of fear. In returning and rest shall ye be saved. In quietness and in confidence shall be your strength, Isaiah 30:15. Return and rest, quietness and confidence. This is your practice, and this is your power, because it is not yours, it is His. Remember, you are not trying to make the invisible visible by force. You are acknowledging the invisible as the only real, and then you watch as forms align. You have never seen a tree, you have seen your concept of it. But when the spiritual idea of life is felt within, leaf and bark and shade and fruit appear as the natural, effortless shadow of that idea. So with guidance, so with creativity, so with supply, ideas first, forms following. In the beginning was the Word, John 1:1. Live at the beginning, and you will not be tormented by ending. Live in the Word, and you will find your speech simple and true. Live in the idea, and the shape will arrive of its own accord. Let this be the ease that carries you now. I am not making the stars to come out, nor the moon to rise, nor the sun to set. I am perfectly content to let God run the universe and content to let God run this next minute. I do nothing of myself. The Father within me, He doeth the works, John 14:10. Contentment is not indifference. It is trust. Trust is not fatalism. It is oneness realized. In Him we live and move and have our being. Acts 17:28. Therefore we do not wrestle with shadows. We do not take counsel of fear. We do not barter with appearances. We rest in one power and watch the play of that power as harmony. And if the mind begins to make again, as it sometimes will, if it hurries, if it hammers, if it invents a second power, return at once, a breath, a whisper, a listening. Thine is the kingdom. Thine is the power. Thine is the glory. The correction is immediate because reality is immediate. God works in the infinite nowness. You cannot be too late for what is eternal, and you cannot be too early for what is perfectly ordered. Now I bless your going out and your coming in, not with promises of spectacle, but with the quiet assurance of presence. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Psalm 23:1. Want is not your future, shepherding is your present. Cast all your care upon him, for he careth for you. 1 Peter 5-7. Care is not your job. Obedience is your joy. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. Adding is not your schedule. Seeking is your simplicity. Walk softly, speak kindly, work faithfully, listen often, obey promptly, refuse the compulsion to manufacture, and welcome the grace to receive. So here is our charge, tender and absolute. Stop manifesting, start receiving. 3 doors of silence today. Thereafter 8 to 12 brief returns. Thine is the kingdom, thine is the power, thine is the glory. I and the Father are one. And because this is so, you will find that peace and provision are not prizes won by effort. They are the natural atmosphere of letting go in that peace and let God run the universe.